John,
Good morning, Brandon.
how are you, buddy?
I'm having a nice cup of coffee. And
I
you?
know it's morning for you, but actually, it's funny. I'm just actually getting through my. I always have these things in my hands. I tell you. What are you having?
Coffee.
Hopefully, it's fair trade, John.
No, I spent some time in Europe and I got addicted to this stovetop stuff the Italians make. You have a little thing and you put it on the stovetop, and like caffeine jet fuel comes out the other end, and I love it. And I have some of that, so it's very strong with plenty of cream in it.
Awesome. Okay. Well, I'm just drinking brown water from Tim Hortons.
Timmy's brown water.
So, but it appeals to me for some crazy reason, but I don't really like it as much anymore because I do a lot of Nespresso. Okay, guys, we're not here today talking about coffee and whatnot, but if you like coffee, give us a thumbs up. Let's dive in. We're going to talk about immigration stuff. Here's what I think we should talk about today. Surprise, John. How do you
Well,
sponsor? Okay, so let's. This is a big topic, and let's just go through different types of relatives. I think and how we can do that. I think that's probably the best way because I don't know about you, but I always get people asking me, how do I sponsor my brother? How do I sponsor this? How do I do that? Right? Because obviously one of the pillars of the immigration system is to be reunited,
family
uh,
reunification. Yep.
and people want to be with their families. So I'm going to make one general comment, and then like let's break it down. Normally, how I look at immigration in terms of the sponsorship and how I explain it to clients usually is it's you can sponsor vertically, okay? And I mean in terms of lineage. You can sponsor parents and grandparents and kids and grandkids. But when you start going sideways, like brothers, sisters, aunts, uncles, like or diagonal, I guess, because that would be an aunt or uncle. When you start going off out of that
Brothers
direct
or
lineage
sisters.
type
Yeah.
thing, it gets a little bit more challenging. Now there are benefits. So let's talk about kids first. How about let's do kids and let's do kids. Let's talk about children.
Well,
So
that is
dive in.
probably that's probably yes. You can sponsor your kids, providing your kids are 21 or younger. They're considered dependent children, and you can sponsor them for permanent residence. And generally speaking, it's the fastest because IRCC recognizes that in the best interest of a child, that they need to be reunited with a parent as fast as possible. So, I mean, I don't do very many of these, but the ones I've done in the past are usually put at the front of the queue. IRCC gets them done in way less than a year, so they're good with that. Kudos to IRCC for doing that. You know, as with all family reunification, language, education, work experience, they're not factors, right? So the government doesn't have to consider those, and it's proving the relationship. And like I said, with a dependent child, is the kid 21 or younger? More. I mean, there's more to it, but those are the big things. And once those are cleared, then the application can be processed.
I'm going to add a few things into that. There are provisions in place depending on when the application was going through for the definition of a dependent of a child, and that changed. I think it was August 2014.
Yeah,
August
it's when
August
the liberals got back into power, they changed it from what the conservatives had put it on.
August 2014. So but those things I think are evaporating now, and they're becoming less relevant. Also, there are some exceptions in terms of keeping families together. If somebody's like medically or doesn't have like medical capacity to take care of themselves and they might be over 22. But again, those are different issues. And I don't think we should stroll into those because that would be a whole other
A
ball of
whole other
wax.
conversation. Yeah.
Yeah, the only thing I'd like to say about that too is this: is be mindful of times when you're actually sponsoring the person. And one thing that trips people up is sponsoring children. A lot of times people don't understand, like, say they're Canadian and they became Canadian, but they weren't born in Canada, right? And then they have a child abroad. That actually tends to mess up the Canadian citizenship type of lineage, right? But you can still sponsor.
Yes.
Okay. So that's one thing that trips people up is they're unaware of that. So basically, the way that works is that if you were not born in Canada and then you became a Canadian citizen and then you have a child abroad, they're not automatically a Canadian citizen. You're going to have to sponsor them. One of the other things is that if your child has medical issues or other things that crop up, or even a criminal inadmissibility issue with a child that might be of age, that could actually sink everybody's application. So whenever you're sponsoring,
And Brandon, what's the process in case you're sponsoring your dependent child who's say 21 or 20, and they have dependent children of their own? How does that work?
Yeah, so sponsoring, you're asking me for grandkids?
Yeah,
Okay, so grandkids can
not
actually,
grandkids, but like the dependent child you're sponsoring has children of their own. Are
okay.
those dependent children allowed to be added to the application?
So short answer is yes. However, there are some other things that you need to take into account. I don't want to like this is such a big topic and we're on for like 15, 20 minutes here. Just generally, and you can add in anything you want here, but financial requirements are going to have to be looked at with that. So that's the first thing that you have to take into consideration as well, because there's LICO and different things that need to
Right,
be
right.
accounted for. And secondly, what's the marital status or common law status? Because then that actually could remove the child from the application and they're on their own, right? So this is actually really complicated in that respect. But yes, children, grandchildren. I've dealt with this more than a few times. Within the caregiver classes, for instance, is where I've dealt with that. But again, it's complicated. It's complicated. It's like my Facebook status. It's complicated, right? But I don't know where that came from because it's not
Yeah.
complicated. But
We've often said, in fairness, a lot of the videos we've recorded over the last few months, it's complicated is something we say a lot, and it is because you have the rules, you have the regulations, and you have the manuals stating if X is applicable, do Y, but there's always exceptions. It's complicated because personal lives are complicated, family structures can be complicated, and it's our job as immigration consultants to help our clients navigate this to the ultimate destination of
make
PR.
it uncomplicated.
Right, to make it to
Make it
uncomplicate it.
easy.
Yeah. So it is complicated, but always do your research. Always reach out to someone if you need help to help get some answers. But yeah, no, Brandon's right. I like the example of the vertical: parents, grandparents, children, grandchildren. Um, Moving on to siblings.
No, let's talk
Uh,
about parents, grandparents quick.
okay, sorry. Yes, before moving on to siblings,
We'll
let's talk
we'll
about
keep in
parents.
the vertical. So, do you want to talk about parent, grandparents real quick?
Yes. So just some background to this. The parent grandparent class is also a program under the family reunification program. Immigration is put into effect, and every year, for the past, well, let's say handful of years, 4 or 5 years, the government announces a quota. They say, look, this year we're going to allow in 40,000, 30,000, 20,000, whatever they're going to do, of applications to sponsor a parent or a grandparent. And so what people have to do is they go to a website on IRC. They go to IRCC's website. They go to a specific page. They log their interest, saying I want to sponsor a grandparent. And then currently the system, because it's tweaked sometimes, currently the system is a lottery, right? You're given an invitation to apply for permanent residence or sponsorship on behalf of your parent or grandparents, and in your application goes. Now, the one thing I always remember, folks, is there's a political aspect to these types of applications. The government of Canada, whether it's whoever's in power, sees that this um, is politically favorable to communities where they want to sponsor a lot of their parents, grandparents. So the government of the day can use it as a tool to try and win votes, right? So every year it's tweaked to try and get sort of the maximum out of that. Now, on a practical note, what does that mean for you if you want to sponsor your parent or your grandparent? You just have to be aware of what's going on. Make sure that you check IRCC's website. that you register for email alerts, so you know that as the system is rolled out for the year, or the program's rolled out for the year, that you're aware of what the rules are, if there have been any changes, and to be proactive and to get yourself into the lottery as soon as it appears.
Can I say something to this, depending on when people are watching this? Two things. First off, currently the way that John described the system is the way it is. They've been playing around with it because it did have some limitations and it was a little confusing for people. And people were like, it's not fair because it's online and I don't use a computer. And there was challenges with the court and different things. Look, there's a lot of people that come here, and I don't think anybody can argue with the fact that it would be nice to be reunited with your family, right?
Of course, I think
So
it's a great program, and it
there's a
has gotten better. To give the government credit, the whole process has gotten better over time.
Well, it's gotten better to the fact that it was rigged before in terms
Yeah.
of people putting in applications and then going on the first day of the year, which is a holiday, and standing at the processing center with bags of applications, right? It was brutal. So now we've got this online system, which I like, yeah, I think there'll be little tweaks to it. But here's the takeaways if you're watching this and you want mom or dad or grandma and grandpa to come. Okay. Look at what the financial requirements are and plan for that. Okay.
Yes.
So that's the first thing. And
Yep.
also understand what you need to do, because you have to show currently multiple years of this and at a certain level. Now, there were some changes under COVID with some drops and they did adjust, but normally you have to show this. Okay. So that's the first thing. Educate yourself on that. Secondly, make sure that you understand what the system is. Like John said, sign up for the alerts and different things like that. I think that's some very good advice. Also, and what John alluded to in terms of the political side of it, this is my favorite thing to hop up on the soapbox about, because every
Here we
time
go. Here we go, everybody. Brandon's getting on his
I'm getting on
soapbox.
my soapbox, John. Every election year, right, we always see that this program is, this year we just had an election and it was like record numbers in the parent grandparent. And the
Isn't
reason
it
is think
40,000
about it.
this year? Isn't
It
it
was
40,000?
40,000, yeah.
Which is the
So
most it's ever been, correct?
most it's ever been.
Yeah.
Because, and usually they're about 10,000 and then they jump to 20. Now we're up to 40. And the reason, there's a few reasons. A, COVID, they needed to fill all the stuff and invite people for their immigration numbers. Two, it was an election year. Somebody who's going through and doing that, presumably has to show 3 years of income, right? So they're going to want to put that in there. And generally, if you're 3 years, you can apply for citizenship, or you're in the throes of that and you've been here before. Chances are you're probably a citizen already, which means you're a voter. And who wouldn't want to remember somebody who brought mom over, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
So I remember back in 2000, I can't remember, not this time, but the time before, when Trudeau announced his re-election, he was in Quebec on the Sunday announcing, I'm going to run for prime minister again. And on the Monday, they had the immigration minister in Surrey, in your stomping grounds, John, out in BC, announcing that, record numbers for the parent grandparent. Maybe I'm a conspiracy theorist, but that's what it is. I'm not really a conspiracy theorist, John, but yeah, that's all I'm going to say to that. So you can plan on that during an election year, you might see a jump in that, and that might be a good opportunity, but you can set yourself up with the finances. Alternatively, there's the super visa option. Again, I'm on my soapbox. I don't think the super visa is super. If you have any questions about that, you can ask me about that. I'm not going to go into that right now, but I actively tell my clients not to do a super visa, because it's not super.
There are options, if I want to interject here. If we want to take this opportunity to move away from parent grandparent and look at, even though they're very small, very limited, what options are available to sponsor, or not, even not to sponsor, but to have a sibling or an uncle or a cousin immigrate. There are options if you're planning to apply for permanent residence, that you can add a sibling, uncle, cousin, auntie to your application. There are possibilities under some business programs that if you are coming in to establish a business in Canada and you have a partner or a founder on a startup, your uncle or your cousin or your family member outside of the vertical linear, as Brandon put it, they can be involved. They can be put on your application as well. The complex. I'm just going to leave it at that for now. But there are options there. There's one.
Man, you took the words right out of my mouth, man. You're in
I
my
know.
brain,
Because
John.
it's because great minds think alike. That's why.
No, I'm serious. I was going to say the number one thing. I was going to say this with respect to parents is that if you want to bring the parents and you can't get into the quotas, maybe your dad's done very well in business and he's still working on that and you want to set up a business. What a great way to be able to transition under some sort of business category. And you can actually have somebody in Canada owning it. Under the old days of the owner operator, for instance, right? 51% of control, but you want somebody on the ground to be able to do it. There's a number of different ways to do it. Don't only think like that. And that's kind of what we do.
Yes.
Because a lot of people will come to us, right? And they'll say, I want to apply to this program because this is what it is and that. And I'm like, no, that's not how it works. Let's look at all of the programs and find out what's your best way and put it down into a funnel and see what's best for you to meet your goals and your timeframes. So don't get caught up in all that. And man, that was the next thing I was going to say.
Yeah,
Was,
and I've been fortunate enough. I've managed to do it for a few families. I have one family in particular from Calgary. Dad was from England in his 70s. Son was in Calgary. Grandparent wasn't working out. This is several years ago. This is like 6 years ago. But dad had a successful engineering business in England. He opened up a Canadian office under intercompany transferee. He came in under a work permit. Mom came in under an open work permit. And without boring you guys too much, over the next 18 months, we were able to transition them to permanent residence under one of the economic categories. But the end result was the same. Mom and dad in their 70s got PR within about 2 years. So
yeah.
there are ways of doing it.
And on top of that, they were probably here during that time anyways, living pretty much a seamless Canadian life while they were waiting for their PR.
Exactly.
So yeah, you gotta think about that. The only other thing I'm going to say about siblings to add on to what John said, there are some categories, and this, I don't know about you, John, but I get this all the time. Hey, I read on the internet that I want to I can sponsor my brother or sister, and there's a program for that. There
Lonely
is.
Canadian?
Sorry?
The Lonely Canadian class?
There is, but it's more of a humanitarian type of class, right? And we call it the Lonely Canadian class. Do you want to just get into that for 2 seconds there, John?
Yeah, in a nutshell, what it is, you're in Canada, you're a Canadian permanent resident or citizen. You have no relatives here, zero. You're completely on your own. No kids, no wife, no husband, no parents, nothing. And that you have no children, wife, or parents to sponsor abroad, right? You can't bring anybody in under the normal vertical family relationship, as Brandon pointed out. There's just no option for you there. In those circumstances, if you have an auntie, cousin, uncle,
brother, sister,
nephew, anything like that, you can apply to sponsor them under what's called the Lonely Canadian class. In 17 years of business, I've never done one because I've never encountered that situation, but they can be done. Brandon, have you ever done one?
I've never done one. I've encountered one where they qualified and I referred it off to somebody else. Okay. But I can tell you, in all the time that John and I collectively, I don't know, we're going on, a long time in this business collectively. He's never done one. I've seen one that I've had merit and referred it off. But I get a lot of inquiries because people read it and the wording is tricky. When you read it on the website there, it's tricky and people are like, oh, I can sponsor it. I read it. I'm like, no, you can't. It's this, it's that, whatever. But anyways, the only other thing that I want to say about brothers and sisters and the advantage that you can have there too is under express entry, they can be worth points to you, right? So CRS points there. And also in terms of adaptability, if you're coming under a federal skilled worker program, that's where, aunties and uncles and stuff come into play there. Did you have anything else you want to say about sponsoring relatives?
No, I think that's good for now. I think we've hit all the main points.
Okay, cool. Listen, let's wrap it up there, man. John, you take care of yourself. Have a great week. And this was awesome. guys, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us. We're always looking for topics, and I'd love to, if somebody can just email us, go to mysecondpassport.ca, say, hey, I got a question, or just comment in this and just let us know. We'll scan that. And I always like it. I don't know about you, but when somebody asks me a question, I'm like, that's a really good question.
Yeah, and after, like I said, after this long in the business, there's still questions that are put to me. I go, you know what? I never thought of that. I'm still
Yeah, I'll get scenarios. Somebody will say, I'm like, man, thank you. Like, that's a really good question. Let's dive into that. So if you have something that you want to ask, please feel free. And also, if you feel that this has been valuable to you today, we would appreciate it if you would let other people know about it. We just enjoy talking immigration. So, and I love hanging out with my buddy John.
Likewise.
John, take care, buddy.
We'll see you next time.
Yeah, that's it, guys. All right. Have a good day, guys. Have a good week. And we'll see you soon, everybody. John, take care, man. Have a good one.
Bye-bye, guys.